Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Pascucci from CCSI, and we're here with FireMon to speak a little bit about their solutions and how we can assist with working together as a partnership. With that being said, a little bit about CCSI. We've been in business now for about 44 years. We have a full SOC that we have here. We're SOC 2 certified. We work from the network to the system to the cloud. So within all those realms, we are working together with our solution partners, with the managed services that we offer. One of those services that we do offer and one of those solutions that we partner with is FireMon. FireMon is a leader in the space. We work with them now, bringing them into healthcare organizations, financial organizations, and we've seen a lot of need in the small, medium business sectors as well. Work together with them to use their solutions to search for the low-hanging fruit within your enterprises. So many things that we've seen with FireMon that have been great value is just understanding where your misconfigurations are, where your rule sets should be a little bit tighter than they ought to be. Being able to take that from a compliance standpoint, being able to run those reports, understand that not only are we meeting security, but we're meeting compliance, which is a big one these days. You'll hear a lot of buzz around the words, continuous monitoring or orchestration. This is where the industry is going. No longer can you just run a report and say, yeah, we're good, man, we're cool. But you have to continually show progress. That's coming as a best practice from security, and now the compliance is now coming behind that and saying, yes, we should be following that. So continuous monitoring is a big deal. Streamlining those changes, orchestration. So if you have multiple firewalls, if you have multiple disparate systems, so they don't have to be, one particular vendor, understanding, how these changes are going to be pushed out, what security risks might be involved, being able to streamline that process is big with the orchestration tools. These are things that the industry is moving towards, areas that we're working with our clients for, and one of the reasons that we partnered with FireMon. We've seen a lot of value with them. We've seen their roadmap. We've kind of understand where they're going, and it kind of works in line with what we're looking to do as well. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce you to the other Matt on the line, the smarter of the Matts. He is going to be working displaying how FireMon works, how it is going to, the benefits of it being within your organization. And from that standpoint, I'm going to hand it off to him. But during this time, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat window. We will get to the questions after Matt is done, and we will make sure we can answer all of those with the proper allocation of time. If not, we will be sending emails out following up on them directly. So with that being said, my name is Matt Pascucci at CCSI. I'm going to hand this over to Matt at FireMon.
Matt, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you for your time this afternoon. What I'd like to talk about today is how we at FireMon can help you with the security challenges that you're having in your environment here. We call our presentation Continuous Security for the Hybrid Enterprise. So as we all know, the world has changed, right? Between cloud computing, virtualization, and Internet of Things, the landscape of technology is evolving and growing. And the hybrid enterprise is here to stay. I'm sure most of your environments now, you have some cloud, some on-prem, some managed, maybe you have infrastructure as a service or SaaS from different providers, and you more or less, what I like to call a bit of a vendor souffle, right? Providers all over. So if we look at a historical configuration, not too long ago, the network was relatively straightforward. You put a firewall between the user and the edge, right? And you were able to secure resources. You wrote firewall rules, and for the most part, they were largely static. They didn't change much, and this was reasonable, and it worked that way. And the firewall configurations were not too complex. But in the modern world, which looks more like this, it's more about intent and implementation. And we have to determine how can we adapt our security policies and procedures so that we can adjust for the modern world. So over the past decade, there's been an explosion in security intent got lost with so many rules written, so many enforcement points. Access and security controls started to live in places that previously didn't exist, the cloud, virtual instances, mobile devices. Not only that, we had to start protecting systems that we had never seen before, right? How do we gauge for burst capacity systems that go out to a cloud provider, right? So if you need additional capacity and you have your cloud configured to burst, it's going to spin up a VM to provide additional resources to your environment and that VM may live for 6 hours. How do you secure that? How do you manage that? How do you track what you secured there so that you can report on it from a compliance perspective? In this world, it's obvious that we have to separate security intent from implemented firewall policies, right? The rules, when we write them, are becoming obsolete as we write them, as we're restricting access, right? So we need to look more about how we can accomplish our security posture or accomplish our security goals from an intent-based perspective. And we have evolving business trends. So continuous delivery. One of the ways we think about this is DevOps. DevOps is a bit of a hot button word because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but more or less being able to be nimble enough to continuously deliver on applications, on solutions for the business. Mutating demand for computing resources, cloud. So we talk about the cloud, and then what is the cloud? It's a few different things, right? It's public cloud providers, it's private clouds within those public cloud providers, but it really is computing resources that are cloaked visibility and shadow IT. And I know that I can speak in great detail in my former life that shadow IT is a very real pain point for IT organizations. Anyone within a group of your organization can go out and spin up a virtual instance in Azure, GPC, or GCP, AWS, and put that resource online, and now it's part of your network, and these people are not part of the IT organization. They're not part of audit compliance. And now you have resources out there that you can't see and you can't manage. And how do we becomes a huge security concern. Virtual machines and containers. You know, they're temporary and dynamic resources for just-in-time computing, right? Like we talked about burst capacity, right? How do we handle these VMs as they come online? And then software-defined network and software-defined containers, you know, it's more of an adaptive response to network. And then the way I look at this is, you know, thinking about software-defined networking is microsegmentation. So how do we protect all those resources, right? And how do we manage those protected resources? And of course, the reason for all the segmenting is due to changing business needs and requirements. Continuous delivery DevOps, we can debate if an agile app development is good for enterprise or bad for security. It's too early to say, but we know that it's not going away anytime too soon. Continuous delivery is here. And with this, applications are flying into production at warp speed. Clouds continue to expand, and clouds are, well, cloudy. It's hard to see what's happening up in the haze, and as we talked about, shadow IT is happening at a rapid pace. Really, doesn't anyone have perfect visibility into their cloud infrastructure? Virtual machines and containers, virtualization is temporary by design. Once again, we see how the unholy marriage of intent and implementation can lead us into trouble. And then software-defined networking and data centers only formalize this virtualization trend. It holds out the promise of adaptive and responsive computing to quickly deliver the business needs, but security struggles to keep pace. So why? Because we haven't separated our intent from our implementation. We still spend all our time writing firewall rules that are obsolete as soon as we implement them. And strategy drives technology, business goals, technology, capabilities, and features. In the hybrid enterprise, we see this as three legs, right? Compliance, vulnerability management, and orchestration. And in vulnerability management, we have the ability to simulate attacks, prioritize patches, and reduce the attack surface. In orchestration, we have the ability to device rule normalization, automate change management, context-aware traffic analysis, and in compliance, we have audit reporting, real-time compliance checking, and internal regulatory controls. So continuous compliance, always be audit ready. The 5 questions: what could happen? What should happen? What may happen? What is happening? What did happen? How do we manage for these things if we don't have a tool that's going to allow us to understand and provide that continuous compliance support? What I've done here is I've inserted a graphic showing the FireMon Security Manager compliance module. And what you can see in here is that there's some KPIs at the top dashboard, but we're also able to see the results of what we call assessments, which are standards, PCI, NERC, depending on what's appropriate for your environment, best practices. And what you can do and see in real time is as you're making changes in the environment, you can see what your compliance posture is. How are the changes that we're making or that are being requested of the networking team, security team, how are they affecting our security compliance? And how are we managing that compliance in our environment? Automation and orchestration. Automation and orchestration is how do we handle the multiple vendors, the multiple location, platform standards? Can we control this all from a single pane of glass? If you're a shop and you've been Checkpoint and now you acquire a company that's Cisco or Palo Alto, how do you start to manage? Or if you've acquired a number of companies and now you have 4 or 5 different or 10 different firewall manufacturers, how do you level set? How do you baseline all those configurations against each other? You need a tool that's going to allow you to do it, that's going to normalize those rules across the platforms, that's going to allow you to automate change, and it's going to do context-aware traffic analysis. And I've provided a sample of our policy planner, which is our orchestration tool workflow. This is a detailed workflow, the default workflow of our orchestration tool as it works in the environment, and how we're able to take a request from a non-technical user, move it, collect the requirements, move it into the design phase, where a technical user will look at the recommendations that the system makes and tells what devices the request will route across. Does the access already exist? Is there a rule that could be modified? Does a new rule need to be created? Where in the rule base the rule should be placed? And also generate the actual CLI syntax command of that rule. And then it'll move from the technical resource to the approver of that request, which may be compliance, might be audit, could be IT management, and they will be able to look at other things. We'll look at the proactive compliance checking. We'll tell you how the change that's proposed will affect your compliance. It will tell you what controls will be violated, if any, by the rule. It will also calculate any risk assessment so that you can see how it's going. Or am I going to expose any compromised devices, any devices that have known vulnerabilities and have yet to be patched? And then we have the ability to then push that change in the implement phase and then validate it all automatically. And there's a lot of attention around this now because a lot of companies, particularly with the continuous delivery, continuous development, are trying to figure out a way that they can become more agile, become more nimble, and take the change request process out of the technician's hands and put it into a systemic way where it can be tracked and audited and reported on. And then vulnerability management. In a scenario in which you receive a large vulnerability scan where you have 300 pages of critical vulnerabilities, where do you start? How do you best assess what patches are the most impactful in mitigating your risk? One of the ways you can do that is using a tool, our tool, to simulate the patching. The product will make recommendations on how to best apply your patches so you can determine where you should apply your patches to mitigate those risks across the organization. We also have the ability to do attack simulations. So if a device on a particular subnet or network or a device itself becomes compromised, we can assess what the risk stature for your entire organization or network is to see what pathways can a person get to if they compromise a firewall in your infrastructure. And this is the vulnerability management dashboard within FireMon that shows the number of assets with vulnerabilities, critical vulnerabilities, vulnerability density, and then it also shows trends. In the lower section here, it also shows riskiest assets with the asset name, IP address, asset value, and then types of vulnerabilities that are applied to that. So bringing it all together, continuous security for the hybrid enterprise requires these three legs, these three pillars of this continuous security: compliance, vulnerability management, and orchestration. You know, and we look at the projects that come up: automated change management, compliance and audit reporting, controlling cloud security, firewall and cleanup, microsegmentation, migrations, reducing the attack surface, and then securing the hybrid enterprise through intent-based security. Internet of Things is an area that's growing very rapidly. So we have some case studies here. Automated change management. We have a customer that had network changing and evolving faster than ever, DevOps making too many change requests, causing there to be a significant backlog in delivery of completion of those change requests. How do we assess when the rate of changes are coming up? How do we assess that they're maintaining the compliance standard and meeting with our corporate security requirements, and increase security risk with every network change? How do we know that we're not exposing ourselves or potentially compromised access? And the requirements that this customer had is automation across entire process, real-time monitoring, reporting, and alerting, customizable workflows and controls, tailored access for specific users and roles, and continuous assessments. And after implementing our product, the customer was able to automate risk scoring, orchestrate, and change response. Results, risk score dropped 65% by systematizing it. They were able to move faster, and change request time was down 70%. And thanks to the continuous compliance, they were able to reduce their audit prep time by 90%. How many people on the call now or out there have been in a situation where they're told that they're going to be audited, whether internally or externally, and have said that they need 3, 6, 9 months to prepare to collect all the information to assess where they are? It's a common challenge. The next case study was to reduce the attack surface. In this case, the customer could not see which vulnerabilities posed the greatest risk. Patching was random and based on vulnerability scans. Could not see how the network policy allows or denies access to vulnerable resources. Waiting for IOCs to lead the fire drill, and responses to IOEs scattered. Requirements: attack simulation in the context of policies. Think of it as a running pen test. Access path analysis to show how exposure can turn to an exploit. Traffic flow analysis to see the effects of all links in the chain. Patch priorities and quantitative risk scoring based on accessibility of vulnerable resources, and orchestrate change once an exposure is discovered. And in this case, the customer who wanted to reduce attack surface was able to quantify risk, prioritize patches, remove exposures with orchestration, and reduce patch time down by 60%. They were able to simulate the attack simulation and show exposures, orchestrate network policy to restore security, and IRE response time down 85%, which is a huge decrease. And they were able to shrink their attack surface by making it hard, by keeping their compliance consistent in real time, and reducing their security concern index by 45%. So bringing it all together, this is how, working with Security Manager, FireMon's core product, we can provide vulnerability management, continuous compliance, and orchestration for the modern enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So we had a few questions come in here. Let me just take a few of them here. One of them was based off orchestration. Someone here says, we have 30 firewalls, different vendors, and they're not all the same. How does the orchestration piece assist with streamlining our change management process?
So there's a few different answers to that question. It's a multi-streamed answer. One, we normalize the configuration across multiple vendors in the environment, right? So everything in our solution appears the same. So you're having an apples-to-apples configuration within the solution. And what we're able to do is that if you need to push a change, because we normalize the configurations across those vendors, we're able to push changes to those vendors, right? So if you have a Cisco, Juniper, Palo Alto environment, we're able to push changes to all three of those devices so that we can make it easier for you to be able to complete those changes.
Got it. So it's no longer you have to know everything. It's, you know, you're using this tool to assist with that understanding. So that's very, very helpful.
And the tool is going to create the syntax, right? So you don't have to worry that if, I know Fortinet, but I don't know Juniper or I don't know Palo. Let the software do the work, make the suggestions, tell you how to do it, and just follow the suggestions where appropriate.
Do you see this is just a random question to you, do you see a normal percentage decrease of, time it takes to push out a rule with large enterprises like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're seeing a few different trends now. We're seeing automation based on, so we touched on it, the SCI score, where a rule with a certain SCI score of below a certain threshold, let's say 4 on a scale of 1 to 10, will automatically be implemented, right? So a customer can say, we agree that this score is low enough that we're going to take the risk and say, we want to automatically implement this change so that we don't have to worry about doing that. We don't have to worry about pushing this through. They'll get notified on the change. We're also seeing a trend where customers are looking to, there's a lot more demand on this. We're seeing customers cut their delivery to their customers, their internal customers, down by 90% in some cases.
Wow. That's a big deal. It's a huge deal, 90%. Okay, let's go to the next question here. What vulnerability management tools do you work with, and how does this integrate with lowering my risk?
So, good question. There's 2 different components that we work with a number of different vulnerability scanners so that we import. The way our risk module works is it layers 3 sets of data. It layers the CVE vulnerability database data, the routing table and ACL information that we have from importing the configuration into our system, and then the results of the vulnerability scanned data. So we work with Rapid7, Tenable, Qualys. The list is quite long. And what we'll do is we'll overlay those 3 sets of data, and we'll tell you where your risks are. We'll allow you to assess where you best apply your patches, right? So if we go back to the previous example, if you have 300 critical risks, where do you apply those patches to best mitigate all risks? And then we'll also allow you to do attack simulations within that risk module, so you can assess if a device is compromised based on a current patching level or a future patch or a recommended patching level, what access would be granted.
Got it. Okay, two more questions. One of them is, will traffic flow analysis assist with, I'm reading this properly, will traffic flow analysis assist with determining traffic within our open or loose rules, like our any rules?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's designed for. We commonly see that. We enable it on a particularly over-permissive, think of a source any, destination any, service any, action of accept. We target those rules, we enable traffic flow analysis, and we're able to see the flow of rules, the flows of traffic that come through those rules, and then we're able to use that information to create more explicit rules so that you can mitigate and eventually eliminate those loose or overly permissive rules.
Great. Perfect. Yeah, that's a huge use case. Going in there and then getting audited by someone, or looking into a configuration where you're like, oh, I'm not sure what's actually passing through this rule right now. So very, very big. That's actually something that we've seen personally here at CCSI. I've been helping clients of ours in the past, which is awesome. Yeah, that's a really good question. And the last question here, are you able to run in AWS with VPCs and or security groups?
Yes, we do support integration with AWS, Azure and Google Public Cloud at the current time.
All right. Well, great. Well, that is all the questions we have. I want to thank you, Matt, for joining and giving that presentation on FireMon for us. It's very informative. Any questions going forward, please feel free to contact us at CCSI, and we will work with you on any FireMon needs you might have, set up some meetings, get some POCs done if needed, and then just take it from there. But I want to thank Matt and FireMon and everyone that's joined us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See ya.